How to add a crouch and prone to your character in Unreal Engine 5. First, go to the content browser and locate your Input Actions folder. Right click, then go to Input, then Input Action. Call this IA_crouch and prone. This input will be used for both crouching and proning. When tapped, the player will crouch, and when held, the player will prone. Save this, then go back to the content browser and open your input mapping context. Click the plus icon, then go to the drop down and add your new input action. Click the keyboard button, then press Ctrl on your keyboard to set that as the crouch and prone input. Save, then go back to the content browser. Right click, then go to Blueprint and add an enumeration. This will be used for the 3 different states of movement. Call this enum_movement states. Open it, then add 3 enumerators. For the first one, type standing. Call the second one crouching. And finally call the last one proning. Save this, then go back to the content browser and open your character blueprint. Create a new variable and call it movement state enum. Set this to the enum you just made. In some space, right click and add your crouch and prone input. First we'll set up the crouching functionality. Drag in the enum variable and click get. Drag off and add the switch on your enum. Connect this to the started pin. When the player is standing and the crouch input is pressed, we want to set the enum to crouched. After this, drag off and add a crouch node. When the player is crouched and the input is pressed, we want to set the enum to standing. Drag off this and add an uncrouch node. Next, click on character movement and in the details panel, search for can crouch. Make sure that this is set to true. To test the crouch, click on the capsule component and search for hidden. Set hidden in game to false. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. When you press the control key, your player's capsule height should switch between crouched height and standing height. Next, we're going to make it so when the control key is held, the prone functionality will occur. Go back to the player character and add a new variable. Call this holding crouch button and make sure it's set to Boolean. Drag it in and set it to true. Connect it to the started pin. Drag in the variable again, this time leaving it as false, and connect it to the completed pin. This system works by always crouching the player when the control key is first pressed, then either the character remains crouched if the key is released or goes to prone if it is held down. Next we're going to add a timer which triggers an event when the control key is held down. Drag off the crouch node and search for set timer by event. Set the time to 0.5, then drag off the event and search for create event. Go to the drop down and select create a matching event. Call this from crouched. Drag in our holding crouch button variable. Get it, then drag off and add a branch. This will check if the control key is still being held down after the 0.5 second timer. Next, add another variable and call it isProne. Make sure this is set to Boolean. Drag it in, get it, and then drag off and add another branch. Connect this to true. If the player is not prone, we want to set the movement state enum to prone. Unfortunately, there is no prone or unprone node like there was with crouching, so we have to do this slightly different. Drag in the player's capsule component. Drag off it and search for set capsule half height. We want to set this value to something lower than the crouch half height. To check the crouch height, go to character movement, then in the details panel, search for crouch height. The default value should be 40, therefore we will set the prone height to 20. Next, drag in the character movement, then search for set walk speed crouched. We want to set this value to lower than the crouch walk speed, which by default is 300. So we will set this to 150. Then set the isProne variable to true. Next, if the control input is held and the player is not prone, we want them to stand up. So drag in the enum variable and leave it set to standing. Drag off it and add an uncrouch node. Then set the isProne variable to false. Next we want to cancel the prone timer if the control button is released. Right click on the return value pin and promote it to a variable. Call this timer. Go back to the start and then drag it into the graph. Drag off it and search for clear and invalidate timer by handle. Connect this to the end of the cancelled. Next, when the key is pressed and the player is prone, we want them to go back to the crouched position. Drag in the capsule component. Then drag off it and search for set capsule half height. Set this to the crouch height, which is 40. Connect this to the proning pin on the switch. Next, create a custom event and call it toCrouched. Connect it to the start of the crouch functionality. Then trigger the toCrouched event here. Next, drag in the character movement, then drag off and search for set max walk speed crouched. Set this to the crouch speed, which is 300. Compile and save. The collision system for crouching and proning is now set up so we can move on to animations. Open the content browser and locate your animations folder. Right click, then go to animation and then blend space. Select your character's skeleton. Call this blend space _ standing. In the asset details panel, go to the horizontal axis and name it speed. We want to set the maximum axis value to our player's max walk speed. To find this, go back to the character blueprint and click on character movement, then search for max walk speed. Mine's 500. Go back to the blend space and set the maximum axis value to this number. Next, search for your standing idle animation. Drag this into the bottom left of the graph. Then drag your standing moving animation to the bottom right. If you hold down Control and move your mouse across the graph, you can see how the animations transition into each other, depending on the player's speed. Go back to the content browser, then right click and duplicate the standing blend space. Call this blend space _ crouching. Delete the standing animations. Then we want to change the max axis value to our crouch speed. For me, this value is 300. Then we want to add our crouching idle and moving animations like we did before. Go back to the content browser and duplicate it one more time. Call this blend space _ proning. Open it, then remove the crouching animations. The maximum axis value needs to be set to our prone speed, which we set to be 150. Then drag the prone idle and moving animations into the graph. Next, I'm going to set up an animation blueprint so that you can switch between each of these blend space animations. Right click in the content browser, go to animation and then animation blueprint. Select your character's skeleton and then click create. Call this ABP _ main character. Open it, then go straight to the event graph. Separate these, then right click and add an event begin play. Drag off this pin and cast to your player character. Connect it up, then right click on this pin and promote it to a variable. Call this player character reference. Drag this variable into the graph. Drag off it and search for isValid. Drag off and get your movement state enum. Right click and promote it to a variable. Connect it to isValid. Drag off the player character again and search for get character movement. Drag off and get velocity. Drag off again and get vector length XY. Right click and promote this to a variable. Call it speed. Connect it up. Compile and save, then go back to the animation graph. Right click and add a state machine. Call it movement. Connect it to the result. Double click on it, then drag off entry and add a state. Call this standing. Open it, then search for your standing blend space. Drag it in and connect it to the output. Find your speed variable and drag it in. Connect it to the speed pin on the blend space, then go back and drag off to add another state. Call this crouching. Open it, then drag in the crouching blend space. Connect it, then drag in the speed variable again. Connect it to the speed pin. Go back, then drag off one more time to add another state. Call this proning. Do the same again with the proning blend space. Go back, then complete the loop like this. Click on the first transition icon. Drag in the enum variable. Drag off it and add an equal enum. Set this to crouching. Connect it to the result. Copy this, then go to the next transition. Paste it, set it to proning and connect it to the result. Do this again for the next transition, keeping it as crouching. Then finally set the last transition to standing. Click Save. Next, we need to set our character to use this animation blueprint. Click on the character mesh, then go to Anim class. In the drop-down, select the animation blueprint we just made. Finally, go back to the capsule component and make sure Hidden in Game is set to true. Compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. You should now have a working crouch and prone system with animations. If this video helped you, please feel free to like and subscribe or support me on Patreon so that I can keep making these Unreal Engine tutorials. Thank you so much for watching.